Presenting Benny Goodman and his music.
Evening, everybody. Hey, Chris. My words exactly. Oh, it's Thursday. Hey, Miguel and Martin. Cassidy's here, all right. Hey, Timothy. Hey, Karen and Karen. Hey, Gregory.
Benny Goodman, ladies and gentlemen, the man with
Hey,
the
Nancy.
torrid clarinet and the even more torrid band who purveys the
Hey, Eric.
rhythms all danceable in the urban room of the Congress Hotel in Chicago. And first of all, one of Irving
Hey,
Berlin's
Vicky and
greatest
Laura.
hits, Blue Skies.
Hey, Cindy. Hey, John and Cindy and Gladys. Hey, Jerry, Kathleen, Laura and Jacqueline and Leah. MJ over on YouTube. Hey, Amy. Hey, Karen. Glad to hear you're about done with that, too. Hey, Amy. Hey, Karina. Hey, Miles. Later, you'll get a bigger shot of my cool new living room. Hey, Becky. Hey, Betsy. Evening, Johan. Hey, Katie. Hey, Miles. Miles found the cat dancer toy. There we go. There's some mild jumps in the background. Hey, Amy. Hey, Katie. Speaking of cats, Layla's got a new kitten at home. Hey, Peggy. Hey, Christine and Jacqueline. Hey, Laura. John, no one knows what an anniversary follower is. It's one of those weird badges that Facebook pops up now and then. But hey, thank you for being an anniversary follower. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Sherry. I'll move over to the side. You see the cool new chair that the cats are just loving. Priya jumping for the cat dancer over here. Hey, Jeff in Cleveland. Hey, Jordana. Hey, Dad. Hey, Rodney. Hey, Evelyn. Hey, Nancy. Bonsoir. Hey, Donna. Hey, Nanette. Been a while, Nanette. Seems like I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, Mary. Hey, Martin. Hey, Kurt. The Jordan Bakers are in the house. Hey, Donna. Okay, Priya, now you have to tell them to say hi. Yeah, Priya. Hey, Mom. Hey, Octavio. I don't know if it's feng shui, but it's more so than it was before, that's for sure. There's not a love seat intersected by the coffee table. Really, the main difference you'd see here is a new chair plus the love seat's been moved. Got the TV up on the wall and moved the stand it was on over here. It's now the piano stand. Hey, Katie. Hey, Bridget. Hey, Kelly and Elkhart. Highway 80, she's a mighty good road. Hey, Donna. Evening, Rob.
Benny Goodman presents Helen Ward singing With All My Heart.
No, there's actually less of the love seat exposed to them now. The curtains are not vintage. They're off Society 6. Hey, Kathy and Patty. Laura, I am having some Z21 bourbon. Barrel Z21 from Jepson's Single Barrel Bourbon. I'll show you. This is where the TV used to be standing on. You could see this before. I outfitted it a bit, decorated it with a Duke Ellington record, added a piano that I'm not good at playing, but maybe I'll get a little better now. Hey, Lori and Laura. Hey, and August 14th, that's going to be the book release tour. Speaking of, I'm going to be on WGN on the Rick Kogan show this weekend on Sunday evening. I say I love you dearly. Heather, you'll get one when I'm showing off the books and stuff in a minute here. Erev Tov, Lisa. Guess you just passed the numbers section on Duolingo Hebrew today. Numbers are hard. Hey, Gabriel. Hey, Trish. Hey, Katie. And John, if he's out there. There you came along. Bridger, that's a big problem, but I feel your pain. I've been there and back. It's a tale as old as the hills, and it's not a happy tale, is it? When the cat won't move and your drink needs refreshing. Johann, you were dead by the time flappers were a thing. So, in your day, they were called the New Woman. Hey, Gina. Yep, 2 months to go. 2 months and a couple of days. Okay, Clinton, that's a scam.
Benny Goodman goes way back and gets a lot of rhythm out of
I'm just gonna block that.
Benny Goodman and his orchestra.
Oh, yeah, I got a nice email about the Graceland book from Rick Kogan today, who has been a reporter in Chicago since the 70s. Oh, thanks, Jacqueline. So I'm going to go on his show. I've met him at WGN before. I'm sure he doesn't remember meeting me, but I remember meeting him. So that was pretty cool to meet. Yeah. On the other hand, I had a History Channel interview today, and I think I may have talked them out of doing an H.H. Holmes bit. Interview went well, except I had to tell them no, there wasn't any torture chamber in that building. Also, a strong wind might have knocked it over. Hey, Tracy. It was nice to have him tell me you liked the book, too. Gina, yes, I got it. Thanks for clearing that up. I thought you accidentally bought for separate ones. Hey, Grandma Bell. Yeah, redoing our living room wasn't that involved of a process. Really, it's just moving a couple of things around. But hanging the TV on the wall was not easy. Just moving stuff around is not easy. Sarah, it's going to be on the radio WGN, but there might be a TV WGN thing, too. You don't get WGN in Iowa? We used to get WGN in Iowa. That's what I watched Scooby-Doo on. Kids in Chicago having a good time. They are watching Channel 9. It's Channel 29 where I was. And Martha.
And they all loved it. They all loved those fast
Lori, they took it pretty bad, honestly.
in the same vein, Rosetta.
Thanks, Betsy. Jordana hit me to this shirt. It's a recreation of one of the ones John Lennon was wearing during the Let It Be sessions, the Get Back sessions. We'll let Benny do one more tune, then we'll get started. Though I gotta confess to you guys, this is gonna be an interesting and unusual version of the tour tonight. Now, we did add a new chair with an ottoman and everything. I'm really loving this chair. Unfortunately, so is Miles, so I don't get to sit in it much. Hey, Natalie. Evening, everybody. Hey, all around. Good to have everybody out there. Hey, Kathleen. I have occasionally thought of painting in here, too. Hey, Steve, it's all right. Can I keep the kitties from clawing the new stuff? It's not really the kind of thing they would normally claw. They like stuff to be more stable for it to claw. Karen Ronnie is in charge of all of her own finances. She wants a new dress, she gets a new dress. I will just fight with her on clutter. I mean, there's a lot of flat surfaces here that she would have liked to put, like, Funko Pops all over. No. Will the 10 and 12:30 Graceland tours be exactly the same? Probably not. Especially if there are people on both of them. I always want to mix it up a little bit in that case. But there'll still be, a lot of the highlights will still be about the same. If you really want to get your steps in. Yeah, Kathy, we've always kept finances separate, and it works fine. She can go to Disney and buy all kinds of Disney stuff, and I won't say anything about it. And I like Funko Pops as much as the next guy. But, I got, enough clutter over here on the desk. I don't need too much more of it. But alright, that's Benny wrapping up. So, alright, ladies and gentlemen, let me get the windows back up and around. Alright, welcome along, everybody. Welcome once again to Mysterious Chicago Tours. I'm Adam Seltzer for Mysterious Chicago. I've been a tour guide and historian here in Chicago for going on 20 years now. I've got about a dozen Chicago history books out. I'm on the History Channel and the Travel Channel all the time. And when I don't talk them out of doing an H.H. Holmes show, because it turns out most of the stories, because I tend to spoil that story for everybody. But alright, so I've also got about a dozen Chicago history books out, including Mysterious Chicago, the book, H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, Ghosts of Chicago, Just Kill Me, which is actually rather relevant today because this one has a whole subplot about Lillian and Collier, the subject of tonight's talk. Also, new from Thames and Hudson, Murder Maps USA, and brand new, officially out in less than 2 weeks, but already shipping, Graceland Cemetery, Chicago's Stories, Symbols, and Secrets, which I will be discussing on Sunday evening on the Rick Hogan Show on WGN Radio. Very excited to do that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't been back in the WGN building since Patty was out. But all right, everybody, here's a lot of people were asking, so here is the new living room setup. The green chair really helped it pop, I think. It's also really comfortable. Just moved the floor pillow over. Really what we did was the gray love seat used to be perpendicular, so you couldn't really sit on, you could only sit on like half of it because the rest was up against the coffee table. That didn't work. Trouble with this is now I have to clean up every time before I do the tours. Normally, the great thing about having the couch blocking the coffee table is that you guys couldn't usually see what a horrible mess the coffee table was, or what a horrible mess the love seat itself was, since nobody would sit there, I had to make it into kind of a clutter trap, which is easily enough. The thing that the TV used to be standing on is now the piano holder. Maybe I'll get a little bit better at playing the piano. Maybe. But alright, so here's the big confession of the day, everybody. So, couple hours ago, as usual, I got ready to do the tour. I looked up my notes. I pulled up OBS, the program I use to broadcast, and realized that the tour wasn't saved. This was not set up at all. I think it was probably because last time I did this tour was right after I got a new computer, and something about it didn't save the files, it didn't save the stuff, everything got kind of lost. So today is going to be a little bit different version of the Thursday night tour. What we're going to do is show show a rerun. I'm wearing the same shirt so you'll barely know, but we're going to show the last edition of this tour first, and then instead I am going to just hang out in the chat with you guys. That's one thing we've never been able to do, is I never actually get to join in on the chat, which always looks like a lot of fun. So here, ladies and gentlemen, gotta find where I put this thing. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we'll just put this at 13:55, skipping the pre-show. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of the Wind Blew In, Lillian, Collier, and the Flappers and Cake Eaters of Chicago. Miles. Miles. Oof. Miles, it's time for Daddy to start working, okay? All right. Well, all right then. Welcome along, everybody. I'm Adam Seltzer for Mysterious Chicago Tours, coming to you with a more high definition all the time, so I am incredibly famous, and you should definitely pay attention to whatever I say. Week, I looked up how much it cost. I was able to find them without too much about tonight into a book called Just Kill Me, and I believe I also managed to work her into the Smart Aleck's Guide to American History way back in 2009. So alright everybody, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, one of the first really big Chicago research rabbit holes that I fell down, which was the story of Lillian Collier and the Wind Blew In, the Bohemian tea room that she operated near Ohio and Michigan way back in 21 and 22. To get started with, one of the first things that I did here in Chicago was look up places like Bughouse Square and the Clark Theater, stuff that I had read about in Daniel Pinkwater books that made Chicago seem like this bohemian wonderland back when I was a kid. I was able to find them without too much trouble and got really interested in the beatnik scene in Chicago, in the 1920s bohemia scene in Chicago, and started reading up on a lot of that stuff. And one of the first places I looked was this place called Bughouse Square, which is now a very nice park, but used to have a real reputation for being quite a bit rougher than this. Bughouse Square is the second oldest park in the city, by most metrics. They say that it was granted to us, the land was granted to us by a guy named Erasmus Bushnell, who said that we could have the land on two conditions. One is they had to build a wall around it. And if you look real close behind the dogs, you can see the city got around that by putting up like a 4-inch wall. He didn't say how high it had to be. The other thing was that anybody who wanted to had to be allowed to make a speech there at any time. And for a really long time, you could go out there any night, up until about the 1950s. You could go out there any night when the weather was good. There would be upwards of 3,000 people cramming into this park, standing up on soapboxes to make speeches, or heckling people who were so engaged. Some people said it was the best entertainment and the best education you could get in the city. Now, there were a number of regular characters who showed up. There was Clark Street Mary, there was Weird Mary, there was Suicide Mary. Lots of people with some various appellation appended to the name Mary. Now, one of the best things that came out, in 1947, a reporter happened to be there the night that they were debating the big news story of the day, that a UFO had crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Really interesting stuff went around. One guy said that it was really just plates flying T-bone steaks around. One-armed Charlie Wendorf, one of the big characters, said that it was all kind of a thing of mass hysteria, and you could cure that by eating living things like dandelions. He himself ate 50 dandelions a day. Other people said that it was had all kinds of weird explanations for this, and one person said, well, you know, they're making those computer things at Harvard that can almost think for themselves. If they can think for themselves, they can probably think up stuff that our scientists can't figure out on their own. Now, this died out, depending on who you ask. Most people the last couple of generations have said that Bughouse Square died out because of television. But when I first started going to the Bughouse Square debates, there were still some real old-timers there who said radio killed Bughouse Square. Now, when I first went out there, I ran into a guy named Joffrey Stewart, who was the Beatnik Party's vice presidential candidate in 1960. The Beatnik Party had a whole convention. He told me the whole story of the convention, which I hadn't seen anywhere else. A guy named Slim Brundage, who called himself King of the Beatniks and was well known in the Bohemia scene around here, organized a whole bunch of Beatniks to take a bus trip out to New York for a big Beatnik Party convention and nominate a candidate for president, assuming that they were going to nominate him. But he only bought them one-way tickets, and nobody could really stand the guy. So according to Joffrey, they ended up nominating a guy named William Lloyd Smith, who ran a bookstore called Murray's Beatnik Bookstore, just about a block away from Bughouse Square. And Joffrey became the vice presidential candidate, and he was all over the place. He appears in the poem Howl by Allen Ginsberg. He's the guy passing out incomprehensible leaflets in Fireplace, Chicago. This is Joffrey at Bughouse Square, still passing out incomparable leaflets more than 50 years after Howl was published. He was still doing it right up to the time of his death just a couple of years ago. I would run into bars and stuff occasionally. And in the spirit of Bughouse Square, you might remember about 2 years ago over on Chicago for Chicagoans, we did like a recreation of Bughouse Square. So to save my own voice for a second, I'll show you my speech from that.
Go.
My fellow denizens of Bughouse Square, hipsters, flipsters, and finger-poppin' daddies, thank you, Mr. Wendorf, for that impassioned advocacy of eating 50 dandelion buds a day. But I speak today of a problem which no amount of dandelion bud eating can actually solve. As you all know, in 1871, our great city was visited upon by a great conflagration, a fire which burned from the south side all the way to Lincoln Park, sparing only a few buildings, including the residence of Mall and Ogden, which stood right where the Newberry Library is now. Coincidence that it spared the home of the man who was the brother of our first mayor? Perhaps, but yet, I tell you, this was not a fire of human origins. Now, Mr. William Ogden himself, the former mayor whose brother was spared, did say that even as the fire was burning, there was also a cyclone, a great tornado blowing through the city. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can have tornadoes in Chicago. Meteorologists assure us of this fact. However, they are highly uncommon. So are massive fires. Two things at the same time? I think not. Other people noted that it seemed for a moment as though the sky had opened up and fire rained down from above. Others still spoke of green, red, orange, and blue flames licking at the cornices of buildings. Others still said that buildings far from the line of fire seemed to blow up from within. Ladies and gentlemen, I quote Ignatius Donnelly, the esteemed writer of Ragnarok, the Age of Fire and Gravel, who spoke of this not being a fire of human origins. Within a week, the Mrs. O'Leary story was debunked. Within days, it was determined that this could have been no mere incendiary fire. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Donnelly believed that this was a fire from a meteor. The same meteor, he believed, which had 1,000 years before wiped out the continent of Atlantis. We will spare Mr. Donnelly for not knowing the science that came later. Scientists today generally agree that meteors could not start fires. Mr. Donnelly, of course, could not have known that. Also, he did not live until 1897. In 1897, people all over the country reported an airship flying over their cities. In Chicago, it was seen above Rogers Park, looking like a giant flying submarine, an unidentified flying cupcake, a cigar going through the air. This was far before the Wright brothers had their first successful flight. This was not an airship of human origin. This was the same aliens coming to check on their progress after having destroyed our city. In 1871, they wished to study our resilience by burning Chicago to the ground and watching us rebuild. By now, we have shown them that Chicago does rise again. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the schoolyard joke says, I come before you to stand behind you. I stand upon this stage to make a platform. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today not to warn you against fires, but to plead with our alien overlords. Next time, do Los Angeles. Preferably before the Cubs have to play the Dodgers again. Last year, they won 106 games. They've got Cody. He was the MVP and the Silver Slugger and the Golden Glove. And we're supposed to go against that with a team owned by Joe Ricketts? And even if destroying Los Angeles does not help the Cubs beat the Dodgers, at least it could do something even more important. Bring the Dodgers back to Brooklyn! 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 Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time indeed. So, In the 1970s, some newspaper reporters took some of the old Bughouse Square veterans out around the old park, who was getting cleaned up at the time, and said, "Do you miss it?" And they said, "Don't have to. Whole world is Bughouse Square now." It's like, really, I feel like you can get the same effect just by going on Twitter nowadays. But just down the block from Bughouse Square, I'm going to move just across the street here now, into this alley. Now, officially, we're in the Gold Coast area. It's just above the Loop, just above River North, about a mile north of the Loop. If you actually walk from the Clark Theater to here, it'd be a pretty good hike. But there is this alley that is actually a street. According to maps, this alley is known as Tooker Place Alley. It still turns up like that on maps sometimes. Now, of course, it's been rebuilt some from the 1910s and 1920s. Back in the day, if we were to spin around, do a spin move from right about halfway through here, right about at the next building, at night it would have looked like this. This is Tooker Place as of about 1927. Now you see that door right directly underneath me here. Here's what it looked like during the daytime. Step high, stoop low, and leave your dignity outside. To get into this place, you had to come in from another direction. You had to literally crawl through a hole in the wall to get inside of the place. But it was a place known as the Dill Pickle Club, spelled with one L instead of two because they thought there might be some kind of a copyright issue. Now, the Dill Pickle Club was sometimes known as the playground for people who think, a slogan later repurposed by some other places. And it was a place where people, artists and weirdos, and self-described anybody who was a nut about something could show up. They would put on plays, they would have jazz bands, and they would have regular debates and lectures. The kind of thing we never see anymore is open forums. So here's the program they had one night. Victor Lindlar, MD, would discuss the physiology and significance of flappers and cake eaters. Cake eaters were male flappers. Then Ben Reitman would talk about love and death in Bohemia. Ben Reitman was all over at these places. Ben Reitman was a noted birth control advocate, a noted anarchist, a noted hobo advocate, and the doctor, and the non-monogamous primary partner of noted radical Emma Goldman. She was probably hanging around here as well. Another night, Mae West, Pistol Packin' Mama, came with her ensemble from the play Sex that was getting her banned in certain cities. Dr. J.W. Clapman would talk biology of life and death. Dr. Benjamin H. Breakstone would talk the rejuvenation of man, which at the time might have been talking about advocating implanting goat testicles into your own scrotum. People thought you could do quite a bit with that at the time. There's also, among the archives of the Newberry Library, which is the building that was back behind that whatever weirdo was giving that speech a minute ago. Back behind that, in their Dill Pickle archives, is this fantastic picture. Now, the guy being outrageously flirted with there in that incredible smoking jacket is a novelist by the name of Max Bodenheim. That's his wife over on the left, looking distinctly unamused. And the woman doing the obnoxious flirting with him is Lillian Collier. Lillian Collier was only a teenager when she started hanging out at the Dill, and was said to write charming poetry that made her the darling of all the people there. She'd been writing poetry for quite a while. Now, Lillian, as it turns out, had quite a number of jobs. But when I first looked her up, I noticed just a couple of mentions about her when I was researching Chicago Bohemia. Looking her up a little bit led me to this article from 1924, which went around quite a bit, that went, "Is today's girl becoming a savage?" Some woman named Lady Balfour, a British noblewoman, had made some kind of statement about how these flappers nowadays with their perfume and their makeup and riding around on trains and smoking cigarettes. Lillian Collier was quoted as saying, "Lady Balfour had best know the flapper before she condemns her. Women too long have had to play the role of the underdog. Now woman has broken the traditional bond. The woman of yesterday was a box of suppressed desires. The flapper of today typifies understanding. She is the product of a new age turning toward the light. The flapper yearns for good. What then if she does use a bit of powder, smoke a cigarette, or wear perfume so highly displeasing to Lady Balfour? Isn't that better than doing all these things in the privacy of the boudoir? You can bet it is, and regardless of what Lady Balfour says, the flapper will survive." So, Lillian had been around for a while. By looking her up a little bit further, we found a number of her other jobs, including a stint working for the circus. She was with the Sells Floto Circus. That's her doing leapfrog over a woman in kind of like a Tarzan outfit, but some excellent boots. And for a while, she was a reporter, they always called her our little girl reporter at the Chicago Post, barf. But they would send her off on assignments like, she remembered years later, they would send her out to faint in the street and see what happens and then write about it. Or they would have her spend the day working construction on one of the high-rises. So here she is, high above the city, sitting on a steel girder, risking her life and violating any number of safety rules just to get a good story. This is a version of it that was digitized by Life magazine just a few years back. But after bopping from job to job for a while and writing charming poetry at the Wind Blew In by night, at the Dill Pickle by night, she opened a place on North Michigan Avenue. So here it is today, the Magnificent Mile. We'll walk down the block. In the background, you can see 333 North Michigan, which would not have been there at the time. None of these buildings were there at the time. In the early 1920s, the Wrigley building was just getting finished up, and it was mostly still whiskey bars and bohemian dives down here in a neighborhood at the time was called Tower Town. So right where the Under Armour store is now was this little frame building that had originally been a gas station until Lillian took it over and turned it into the Wind Blew In. That's Lillian on the right with her friend and business partner, Virginia Harrison. Possibly more than just a business partner. And she said, I tried to make it a place of artistic tone and spiritual uplift, as much like Greenwich Village in New York as possible. But it wasn't possible because the dirt is so much different in Greenwich Village. In spite of these handicaps, I maintain it is the best restaurant ever made out of an old gasoline station. The Wind Blew In was designed as a place where artists and writers could foregather and discuss the arts. The windows are kept gray to give that cathedral interior effect to the dining room. There are plumber's candles giving a mellow light and don't cost as much as electric light. So this became a place where artists could hang out. It was also quite likely an early gay hangout in Chicago. It was a place where people of the genius type went, though really I think by the time they'd only been open for a couple of weeks, probably they had about as many people just going there to see what all the fuss was about than anything else. But we do have a few advertisements for what went on in the place. The Wind Blew In, January 7th, 1922, 116 East Ohio near Michigan, the rendezvous of artistic Chicago, always something doing. Meeting in the studio to form cooperative players groups, plays will be read and parts assigned for rehearsal, all interested welcome. Or writers, artists, and others meet kindred souls every night in the week at the Wind Blew In. Lecture on Sunday, What Art Means to Me, by an artist, a writer, a designer, and a matinee idol. That would have been a very interesting panel. Reminds me of that old sketch on The State where they get like a whole bunch of artsy people and say, now our panel discussion is, what is art? And one guy just says, you mean like paintings and stuff? Like, correct, that's all, folks. Another ad from towards the end of the time of the Wind Blew In, writers, artists, and other meet kindred spirits. This lecture Sunday night, Sam Putnam, poet, editor, and newspaperman, will lecture on 4 young Chicago poets. Most interesting here is that it includes Jun Fujita. Now, he is better known, really, as a photographer. He was one of the first Asian American photojournalists. He shot a lot of photos that we've actually shown here on Mysterious Chicago over time, like this shot of the Eastland, capsized in the Chicago River. I know we've shown that one. And the famous shot of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre site. But he actually came to the Wind Blew In to discuss his poetry. And quite a bit of his poetry is available online. He was a well-regarded poet. I'll read just a bit of one. Dried Whispers. The icy gaze of the moon has stilled all things of night, save dried whispers of leaves that curl and fall. Snow, fainter than hushed feet, stealing through my hazy dream. Snow in the midnight woods. It's very evocative. I really like that. So the Wind Blew In operated really for just a couple of months and got raided frequently. Finally, one day, 100 years ago this month, in February of 1922, the cops raided it and arrested 40 people, including Lillian Collier and Virginia Harrison, who is often described as her aide or her partner. Some people said that her last name, that it was Virginia Collier. So there was definitely some hints that they were thought to be a bit more than friends at the time. Petting parties in Wind Blew In? No, youths of her. So the judge dismissed everybody except Lillian and Virginia. They were due to come back in a little while. Either Lillian or Virginia famously told Judge Jacobs, "Your Honor, we solemnly swear there is no snuggle pupping at the Wind Blew In." Great line. Snuggle pupping was kind of like cuddling, only somehow a little bit more illicit. Also, one who enjoyed it was known as a snuggle pup or a snuggle puppy. Snuggle pup male, snuggle puppy female. Now, later on, when their case was continued, the judge said, "Well, the only thing that's really the matter with you is you have a false value of the things of life. I understand that you tried to keep a decent place here." So he sentenced them to read a book of fairy tales to cure them of their bohemian ideals. Lillian dutifully walked to the nearest library, checked out a book of fairy tales, and posed with it like so. Now, shortly thereafter, it was raided again, and she was ordered to cover up the nude statues. And she said, "The cops come in here oftener than customers. There's nothing wrong with the place. The cops just didn't get their usual handout, that's all." Eventually, she even got a restraining order against the police, at which point the chief said, "Well, that stinks. If the courts want to open up these places, why should I care? No one else does." To a reporter printing a widely syndicated article, she said, "I must preach the gospel of real life. Too many folks just in from the Corn Belt here. There aren't many real people in Chicago. I mean, those who do big things, those who see the light. But I'll try to struggle on. Bohemianism will come to Chicago, but it will take years, perhaps ages. I am willing to sacrifice myself to bring it a step nearer." You can kind of imagine what her Tumblr would have been like, or what she would have been like on TikTok, really. But then, shortly after these interviews, April of 1922, only 3 weeks after the judge issued the famous ruling, the place was wrecked by fire. And for the Chicago Post, this was front page headline news. You can see I couldn't even fit it all on on the screen at once on the microfilm reader. I had to condense it down quite a ways to show the Wind Blew In wrecked by fire from the Chicago Evening Post. Sometime in the night, the whole place was torched. And here's Lillian as she appeared right at the beginning. This is really the best view we've got of what the place looked like on the outside. And they absolutely could not resist the puns like "wind blew in, blown out." And here are a couple of fantastic pictures of Lillian and Virginia. Lillian looking very sullen, very goth. It looks like she's about to do the goth gang sign here. And Virginia is smiling away. Now, apparently, though, before the place was torched, Lillian was arrested and brought in for questioning, but quickly released. But several witnesses said that Virginia had been seen stomping around, vowing to get even, and bought a can of gasoline down the block. She disappeared from the city that night and was not seen here again for some time. She would become kind of a mystery. And really, this was all kind of a mystery. 2 years out, Lillian tried to reopen the Wind Blew In, another place. She opened a place on LaSalle right across from the police station, which she figured would save them the trouble. But the thing is, it was too nice. Now, one person who remembered both places said, "The thing is, we were paying 75 cents for tea in that place. Like I'm drinking tea right now." Tea, sure. 75 cents would have been an awful lot to pay for tea back then. That's like a $15 cup of tea. And the place on LaSalle was just too nice. When people paid that much, they wanted a little bit of dirt. They came for the experience more than for anything else. So it didn't last too much longer. Lillian, 2 years later, gave that interview about how flappers represent a new era of women turning toward the light, then disappeared from the record completely. There was about a 10-year period where every now and then I would try to find out what had happened to her and just hit a bunch of false leads and dead ends. There was a poet named Lillian Collier in Canada. There was a New York socialite who married an Olympic fencer who then died in an airship crash. A lot of people named Lillian Collier. It was a fairly common name, which made it a bit of a trick. And also it was well known around that people in Bohemia tended to change their names. That made it even trickier, so it might not have been her real name. Certainly nobody could find Lillian Collier in the census. And it wasn't because we weren't looking. So, about 2014, I started work on a book called Just Kill Me. This was a murder mystery about a ghost tour guide who makes places more haunted by killing people at them. And I decided I would write her story into it. I would have the girl in the book get obsessed with Lillian Collier the same way that I had, and that would kind of lead her to being able to solve the mystery in the end. So at that point, I realized, if I'm going to put this book out, I need to buckle down. I need to solve this mystery and figure out what happened to her. I started making sure that I had gotten every single microfilm article that I could, and finally noticed the hit pay dirt in this one, which says that he had caught people in unconventional attitudes cuddling up and smoking cigarettes. I'm not sure what he meant by unconventional attitudes. Possibly that it was same-sex couples. But then it mentions Miss Collie and her mother, Mrs. Nellie Lieberman, told the court that nothing stronger was tea was served in the restaurant. Big clue there, Lieberman. So if her mother's name was Nellie Lieberman, that was probably either her real last name or her original last name. And by looking up Nellie Lieberman, I was able to find quite a bit more. Finally found, in fact, the census. And here's why we couldn't see it. There was like a blot there that made it look like it said Lillian Colty. So now I had the names of her sisters, Martha and Bertha Lieberman. We had her parents, Meyer and Nellie Lieberman. By digging around with there, I could find where Meyer came from in Russia, when he got married. Her mother's maiden name was Bensonsohn. And digging around even further, I found out that they had originally lived in Baltimore when Lillian was a kid, where Lillian wrote this charming poem for the newspaper there. The Coming of Love. One cold day in winter as Jack Frost came sailing by, in a little boat all made of clouds way up in the sky, he looked upon the dreary world, busy as a bee, but not the smallest bit of love or kindness could he see. Everyone was hurrying, everyone was sad. Thought he, dear me, what must I do to make the people glad? So he brought dear Cupid, the little god of love, and stole him from his mother and the ones that lived above, and took him to the sad world, the sorry ones to cheer. And now he comes from heaven on one day every year. Lillian Lieberman, aged 14 years. Now, she and her mother was also in the habit of writing to the newspapers. Around the same time, her mother wrote in to they asked a big question saying, all right, women, you want women's rights? How do you want your husbands to act? And Lillian's mother, Nellie, wrote in with an article called Must Assert His Rights. It says, a good, quiet, obedient husband would be disliked and tormented by all, especially by his wife. If he went out to smoke his pipe in the shed there, and very soon he would, like the suffragette, have to fight for his rights to be considered and recognized as a human being. Now, you kind of remember, 10 years later, Lillian was in all the papers saying that women, so what if women smoke cigarettes openly? Isn't that better than doing it in the boudoir? It's exactly like her mother had said here. It was kind of very, very, very early 1910s version of feminism, I suppose. But also, I did rather like the article right next to Lillian's mother's was called Women Love Domination. We'll just put that up and snicker at it for a second. But based on the census record, we can find where they were in Chicago. There is a marriage record to a Lillian Lieberman to Herbert Collie in the year before they moved to Chicago. They lived on Levitt Street in the Wicker Park area, right where this newer building is now. Unfortunately, it's not the old one that's still standing. But having this data, having her mother's maiden name and having her father's date of birth and his country of birth and his place of origin, I was able to start looking him up. Found his World War II draft registration. Meyer Julius Lieberman. At that time, he was living in Los Angeles. And then down at the bottom, a name and address of someone who will always know your address, Mrs. Lillian Gerard of Los Angeles. That was the name that opened up the floodgates. Looking up Lillian Gerard, I found a couple of references to there being a writer whose real name was Lillian Gerard, and it wasn't too hard to eventually trace her back to Lillian Collie. Now, it turned out that Lillian had initially moved to California, married a guy named Frank Gerard, worked on Cannery Row for a while. By 1934, she was living in Los Angeles. And made the news at one point. She found a woman named June DeLong who was wandering around incoherent after taking way too many sleeping pills in the middle of a big Hollywood trial. She had been, it was one of the first big Hollywood moral trials. She was caught in bed along with another naked woman and the head of Central Casting. which led to a bit of a trial. That's a whole other story. But in the middle of that, she was also writing murder mysteries. She had taken the pseudonym of Nellie's Child, which is a fast way of saying Nellie's Child. She changed her first name formerly to Nellie's. She appears in most of her vital records under the name Nellie's. She seems to have changed her name quite a bit. She had a son named Frank Gerard and changed his last name a couple of times. But while she was writing these mystery novels, she also wrote a play called Weep for the Virgins. Weep for the Virgins was produced by the famous Group Theater Project in New York. She apparently hopped trains to get from California to New York to see her own play put on Broadway. It only lasted about a week. She wrote quite a number of plays over the course of her life. She lived in New York for the next couple of decades after this, went to every Broadway show that came out. She wrote a number of plays. A common theme in reviews of them is the reviews are never good. Her books always got very good reviews. The plays, less so. But by poking this up, we started finding things like a picture of her in 1938. Or a picture of her in the 1940s when she was just a housewife for Frank Gerard and writing novels on the side. Though she eventually divorced Frank Gerard, married a guy named Abner Rosenfeld. Now, one of my favorite things that I found is in the 1930s, she wrote a chapter for a book called Chicago Murders. This was an anthology of Chicago murder stories. That's her in the hat in the middle here, right in front of the column, at the old Marshall Fields bookstore at an autographing party they had for this. Right next to her is Vincent Starrett, who is best known as an expert on Sherlock Holmes, has an awesome Sherlock Holmes-themed gravestone at Graceland Cemetery. I'll read just a bit of an excerpt of Lillian's chapter was about a woman named Marble Mildred, a woman who was very nearly got the electric chair. He said, the most common crime in the homicidal calendar, the crime of passion, is still a rare... what is going on with my machine here? Okay. Everyone has experienced rage and an ego of snarling for blood, and almost everyone has resisted its demands, or indulged them within limits that stop short of murder. Bare acquaintances slyly rejoicing at funerals, husbands and wives verbally assaulting each other, are all paying tribute to the same impulse. If wishes were horses, some of our best friends would be trampled to death. Usually, when a man shoots a woman, he attempts his own life. When a woman shoots a man, she seems to think that's enough for one day. It's really a very clever piece of writing. I wish she had done more nonfiction. The only other nonfiction by her I found was an account of her trip to Israel that she took in 1962, which is fascinating. Israel in 1962 was still run by secular socialist types who would say things like, see, we don't need to import zippers, we can make our own buttons. And so few people really spoke Hebrew or Yiddish there at the time that when she and her husband asked where shul was, someone said, shul who? Now, her last play was written in 1959. That's her down there with the script. On the left is her good friend Irene Castle, who had been one of the most famous actresses of the 1920s. You can still get an Irene Castle haircut. She apparently appeared in the play just as a favor to Nellie's, to Lillian. And her son, Frank, who I was able to get in touch with for a while, sent me this picture of the two of them in 1976. So this is Lillian in her mid-70s. I absolutely love this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever found in the course of research, because in her mid-70s, she still looked just fantastic. And that, of course, still leaves us with one other outstanding question for all of this, and that is, what became of Virginia Harrison? Turned out that she actually became a bandit queen. Now, she gave birth to a baby almost exactly 9 months after the Wind Blew In fiasco, so either she was already pregnant at the time, or she got pregnant that same night. 9 months later, she gave birth to a baby named Jean in San Francisco and married a guy by the name of James Ryan, who, according to later reports in the Chicago Daily News, had broken out of prison in 1921 in the same jailbreak that got terrible Tommy O'Connor out of jail. So Virginia then took up with this band of bank robbers. She had a wooden leg and couldn't run very well herself, so she didn't do the actual bank robbing herself, plus she was home with the baby, but she would plot out every single raid. They did a really highly publicized raid robbing the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, then various other companies around the city, including Pullman. She actually organized a robbery of the Pullman Company. If you're a regular around here, you know that's a good running joke for us. But then her husband was shot and killed on one of the raids. She went to try to identify the body under an assumed name, and they figured out that it was her right away. And at that point, her story kind of stops. It was said at the time that they probably couldn't hold her for anything, but very difficult to tell for sure. After that, she probably stopped using the name Virginia Lane or Virginia Ryan, and who knows, that's still an open question. Some mysteries you just never quite get to solve. But one question that I asked her son when I got a hold of him was, there's a lot of rumors that maybe she and Virginia were more than friends. He said he didn't know for sure, but it would explain a lot. It didn't bother her one bit when he came out in the 1970s, and after thinking about it more, he sent me a couple of names of women that he strongly suspected that she might have had an affair with over the years. So it's one of those things we don't know for sure, but pretty good chance. She ended up moving back to Chicago with Abner, her husband. They lived up on a high-rise on North Sheridan, right on the lake, over in the Edgewater neighborhood, about a block away from the Ken Nordine house. And she died in 1981 at the age of 79. She's buried out in Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. We found her grave on Find a Grave Friday, not far away from the grave of Harold Ramis not too long ago. Well, all right, everybody. That ran a little bit shorter than I expected to. But a quick plug for the upcoming events. All right, got to switch over to different upcoming events. But all right, everybody, let me move back and we'll do the upcoming events. Closing, there it is. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm live again. Thanks for sitting through a rerun tonight. I did not have enough notes that I could have recreated that one properly, honestly. So, all right, once again, everybody. So, upcoming tours. Next week, Uptown Tales. Uptown Tales. We've only done this one about every 6 months or so, but I really enjoy that one. Lillian herself was living up in that general vicinity, well, a little bit further north than that. August 7th, a week from Saturday, we will be doing, Sunday, we will be doing Architecture of Mysterious Chicago. And then August 14th, the Sunday, we will be doing at 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. the Graceland Cemetery book release. It is finally here. We will be doing welcoming it officially Sunday evening. This Sunday evening, I'll be on the Rick Kogan show on WGN to talk all about it. So, all right, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining me again. Now, should you need a Mysterious Chicago sweatshirt, t-shirt, hoodie, etc., cafepress.com/Mysterious Chicago has all of the goods. Don't forget, it's also got the new Mystericon 2022 shirt. Mystericon 2022 starts September 30th with a couple of architectural boat cruises at 6:30 and 8:30. Only a few slots left at 6:30. 8:30 still got a lot to go, though, but we still got some plenty of time. So, all right, everybody. Are you impressed with how quickly I can grow a mustache? I can do it really, really fast, but just in the while I'm in reruns. So, all right, we will put the Benny Goodman back on, and let's just hang out. I can hang out a little. I'll hang out along the night. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Natalie. Thanks, Karina. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks to everybody who's donating anyway. I really do appreciate it. This has been keeping me afloat. Elaine, I'm saying 12:30 because at 12:45 I'm going to do like a little presentation that's free. So I figured it's a book release. I shouldn't charge everybody who wants to just come to the book release. The tour itself will start at 1. Well, Karen, I didn't have the new look half an hour ago, so. You guys have fun in these chats. I decided to go for the Hulk Hogan stash. I'm telling you, Hulkamaniacs, I believe in one thing, and that thing is hair plugs. Tracy, that's often. I was like, I keep looking now and then. Signed copies from the autograph signing copy do come up as well. They go for a little more than I want to spend. They're like $300. I once saw one for $30, but it was a time when I did not have $30. Good night, Jenny. Ein Bet Mal, Lisa. Lynn, yes. Becky, yes, the first tour is going to be a hybrid tour. What is Miles? Hey, Miles. Ah, hey, buddy. Look, I got my 90s look on. Like I could have grown this in the 90s. I tried.
And that would put rhythm in the feet of a wooden Indian. That was the bugle call rag, Benny Goodman's own arrangement. Now, the popular tune, Thanks a Million.
Miles makes his contractually obligated appearance. Layla's got a new kitten at home. Dee, would I ever move back to Iowa? Do you think anybody's going to pay me to talk about Iowa history? People will pay me to shut up about Iowa history. Not if they keep electing governors like COVID Kim, especially. I don't know how safe I'd feel there. Hey, Katie, Iowa history's got to be more interesting than it seemed in grade school when we had Iowa history class. That was a slog. There was one Civil War battle where they were over the border in Missouri and they fired a cannon into Iowa. It kind of like rolled harmlessly to a stop. I think it like damaged a wooden plank. At least I lived in Des Moines. You know, as Bill Bryson once wrote, the best thing about living in Des Moines is that it's not anywhere else in Iowa. So you go visit like a cousin in a small town, and they're like, "We went bowling and read magazines at the drugstore. I've never had such a swell time." Laura, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a lot more chat going on the Facebook side of this.
Way, they're all trucking.
I did write a middle grade book that was all about Iowa history stuff. It never came out. It got rewritten eventually. It's one of the problems editors had with it is it's just too Iowa specific. Kids don't like stuff that's that regional. So I rewrote it to be like a fake town and ended up making it quite a bit funnier. But it's still on Submit, I guess. It's still floating around. Oh, thank you, Gina.
We had to have someone new, a dance to do up here in Holland. So someone started talking. As soon as the news got round, the folks downtown came up in Holland.
I like going back to Iowa a lot.
Everybody
I haven't been in about a year.
It didn't take long. Before the hi-hats were doing it.
And yeah, we've done plenty of tours from Iowa when I go back. We hit that cemetery in Iowa City.
It felt like a forest blaze. Came a great
The ones in Des Moines.
Everybody's trucking.
Then we had the Klaus Oldenburg statue. And when I'm in Iowa, I don't have trouble finding stuff to do a mini tour. We went to Oak Grinnell to check out the Louis Sullivan Bank. And the grinders, yes. I'm always looking for a grinder. That's one food you can't recreate. I've never been able to recreate it properly myself. Yeah, the thing about the Dollar Shave Club is I'm just not a joiner. You know, do I actually have to join the club? Will they make me attend meetings? Are there bylaws? Yeah, Julianne, we did that cemetery. We found that was one of our find-a graves. Yeah, Dana, my friend Jessica has been on Whiskey and a Cookie with me a couple of times. And I broadcast once from her kitchen about a year ago. And she and her husband have this cross-stitched QR code, like one of these, sitting on the mantle. I was up before everybody else setting up to do my tour. Noticed out there that they wouldn't have it out if they didn't want me to scan it, so I scanned it. And it led to a YouTube of Rick Astley singing Never Gonna Give You Up, so. Rick rolled me with cross-stitch. Previous to that, I was last in Iowa. My parents and I went there for Caucus Week, just to go to every event that we could get into and observe the caucus a bit. That was fascinating. Plus, we got to see all our favorite talking heads. Kathleen, yeah, there's Whiskey and a Cookie tomorrow night. There always is, every Friday. We haven't missed a one. Sometimes we can't go that long, but we've never missed a one. Now, Cindy, a grinder sandwich it's an Iowa State Fair food originally. Well, I guess there was a stand in Iowa that had before the fair. It's basically a sausage sandwich on a hoagie roll, but it's ground sausage, also mixed with beef and various spices and sauces. Sometimes known as a State Fair grinder, a Great Grinder, or a Jenny grinder. The original name for it it was never politically correct. Though I admit I had no idea which word was I'll just say it. When I was in school, it would appear on the menu as guinea grinder, which is a racial slur for Italians. Though I had no idea of that at the time. I had no idea that meant Italian, let alone that it was a slur. When somebody told me it was, I thought they meant grinder was a slur. But yeah, they should never have called the sandwich that. But now nobody can really land on what to call it instead. Italian grinder was the last place I got one.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and we stay right in the urban room of the Congress Hotel in Chicago and dance some more to Benny Goodman and his...
Maria, I got a running list of all the stuff I ate at the Iowa State Fair the last couple of times I went. Deep fried butter on a stick, 2 kinds of deep fried pies, classic deep fried Oreos, of course. Deep fried pineapple was really good. Oh yeah, teriyaki pork chop on a stick. I got a whole song about Iowa State Fair food. It's called, No Sleep Till Type 4 Diabetes.
Let it go.
Well, Lynn, my stomach was a toxic waste dump at the end of the Iowa State Fair for sure. Even your average nutritionist says it's fine once a year.
Everywhere you go,
Trouble is we've taken the fair home with us.
Big Ben rings it, Valley sings it, Wiseman swings it, even Mr. Crosby sings it, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch the trouble by the toe, if the hollers let it
All right, let me see if I can find the lyrics to that song,
away.
and I'll play it. See if I can. I don't know if I can remember all of it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I think I can do this tune. Thank you, Gene.
And we'll let the title speak for itself. Benny Goodman.
I'm gonna pause Benny. I'm actually gonna attempt to do this tune about Iowa State Fair food. I lost the beta version of my teeth when I was 7, and the newer ones are starting to decay. But they can't even give me better models at the dentist, and they won't be quite as prone to rot away. I'm going to the Iowa State Fair now. Gonna eat and eat and eat and eat some more. Cause type 2 diabetes is for wussies. No sleep till type 4. I've already smelled the hospital hallways. I've already seen a few lines on my face. And one day they'll yank the lease right off this rental. So I say we party hard and wreck the place. Like I don't recycle cause I know a meteor is gonna screw us like it did the dinosaurs. And type 2 diabetes is for wussies. No sleep till type 4. No sleep till type 4. It'd be a wicked guitar solo right here if I had another guy playing guitar. Deep fried butter on a deep fried peanut butter cup and deep fried butter. Teriyaki pork chop on a stick. Everything at the fair except the bull fries. My shirt says Little Debbie is my bitch. No sleep till type 4. No sleep till type 4. No sleep till type 4. Oh, if you tell me we should cut out sugar, I don't love you anymore. Type 2 diabetes is for wussies. No sleep till type 4. 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 Really sophisticated tune. All kind of based on that one book that I wrote that was dealt with that stuff. New foods at the Iowa State Fair this year? I gotta look this up. Any good bands playing? Any good concerts that I could work in? That was written for my old middle school band. All our songs are about that appropriate. In fact, over Caucus Weekend, we celebrated our 20th anniversary, or 25th anniversary, by recording an instructional dance number, of which I can only repeat the words "do the." Hey, Rosalinda. We're actually in the post-show hangout right now. For those of you just joining us, the broadcast started at 8 p.m. Central Time. Now, last time I went to the Iowa State Fair, I saw Kiss play. I ate deep-fried butter on a stick, sat in the back row of the grandstand watching Kiss lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance, and they brought veterans out on stage. I had never felt so American in my life. You do the shit for hell last damn. But they did play Lick It Up. Ronnie, the facial hair wasn't there at the beginning of the tour. I had to play mostly a rerun tonight, so just to mix it up a little bit, I quick grew a mustache and a goatee right in the middle of the tour. Kind of like Weird Al actually had to gain 800 pounds for the fat video. He had to eat salad for like a week to get back to his original weight. Well, Phoenix, I've been here this whole time. You know it couldn't have been me. I like Kiss just fine. I'll go see them any chance I get. I'll read any book written about them. I do not think they were a good band. But very few of their songs are particularly good. Even the ones that I like are generally not good. There's in their whole catalog, I think there's a greatest hits album full of pretty good songs. Oh yeah, we gotta get the Benny back on. Wash the out of middle school band out of your throats. Out of your ears. Yeah, Beth's not bad. Black Diamond, good song. Strutter, good song. Calling Dr. Love, good hook, but come on, nobody needs to sleep with Gene Simmons for medical reasons. The Cats are playing their favorite game, which is called Horse Stampede. You see, they both enjoy the new chair. The living room is pretty much done at this point. I still need a new end table between the chair and the couch. I saw Metallica play at the Iowa State Fairgrounds, but it wasn't part of the fair. Is that where you guys saw Kenny G too, Dad? Because I was just thinking I couldn't be a wider list. Who is this Iowa State Fair this year? I'm gonna look up. Brooks and Dunn, Nelly, Demi Lovato, Alanis Morissette I would see. Her new album was her latest album. The Meditation album I could skip, but the album she had out a year or two ago was terrific. Kane Brown, Disturbed, Keith Urban, Carrie Underwood, Outlaw Truck and Tractor Pull. That's stereotypical. Nobody I would travel to see. Do I ever get to sit in the new chair? Not very much so far. I've seen Alanis a couple of times. I saw her once in the 90s and once about 2003. There's a song called Her on her latest album that's an all-timer in her catalog. I saw her in the 90s with Taylor Hawkins drumming. That's my most vivid memory of the show is how much fun that guy was having. Not when he had facial hair about like this.
And here's a short encore portion of Benny Goodman's forthright invitation at the beginning of his program. Let's dance.
The thing is, I'm just afraid if I go to the Iowa State Fair this year, Ron DeSantis might show up. That just wouldn't be good. You always got to trip over presidential candidates at the Iowa State Fair.
We have been presenting the music of Benny Goodman and his orchestra from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Kristen, the way to do that is to be a fortune teller. Fortune teller. We'll rewind the Benny here. But Nightmare Alley had a fairly similar plot there. Marie, I'll drink to that. I just don't want to be in the same airspace as Ron DeSantis. Ew. TTFN, Lynn. Iowa used to be a swing state, you know, and I remember we went for Dukakis when I was a kid. All of my friends in Iowa are Democrats. If they weren't, I wouldn't be friends with them anymore, probably, so. Okay, well, that's true. Yeah. The guy who just wrote a book called Masculinity. So you can buy Josh Hawley's Masculinity cheap on Amazon. Well, Donna, I never wish physical harm to come on another person. Usually.
And that would put rhythm in the beat of a wooden Indian. That was the bugle call rag, Benny Goodman's own arrangement. Now, the popular tune, Thanks a Million.
Kathy, once upon a time I could be friends with Republicans. Now I kind of feel like if they're voting for these guys, what must they think of my family? Well, you know, I do have friends who are libertarians. Couple. Though even though they've kind of like not part of the party anymore. Yeah, the mustache will be gone in half an hour, I'm sure. Get lost out there with a harmonica? I do have a harmonica.
Down Harlem Way, they're all trucking, and here's Helen Ward to tell you all about her. Trucking.
I did last time I grew a winter beard out years ago now. When I shaved it down, I did start like shaving it down to Hulk Hogan length and put that on Instagram. And some kids I had on a as a school group followed. Hey, Count, we're just in the post-show hangout now. Have a good night, Gina. Kathy, I know this is not an indelible pencil because originally I tried having it like be like a Rolly Fingers Johann Hawk curling one, but it didn't work. I ended up with kind of the James Hetfield look, who right now is probably on stage down the road at Lollapalooza.
We had to have someone new, a dance to do out here in Harlem. So, someone
I'd like to see Metallica again. I haven't seen him since the 90s.
as soon as the news got round,
Green Day is playing at Metro tomorrow night.
you must be Harlem star.
I couldn't get tickets to that one.
Trucking
Still holding out hope, but
on the high avenue, Park Avenue, and it's
all over town.
you see them shuffling, trucking along. It spread like a forest blaze, became a great
Now, the new look will last about half an hour.
problem now. Everybody's trucking.
I see that I've fooled some latecomers, though. The last time I saw Green Day, they were in a place not much bigger than the Metro. I did manage to get my Springsteen tickets for Milwaukee. I didn't get good tickets, but I got tickets.
Benny Goodman presents On the Alamo.
Krista, in the 90s we got pissed about everything, you know? I was just thinking how many pissed off people were at the Green Day concert around that year. You know, there are all these like 12-year-old kids talking crap about them because they weren't real punk. This is why ska became a thing in '97. All of a sudden, we all got sick of calling everything that was fun to listen to sellout. Which naturally led to the swing revival, because if you hear one ska album, you'd heard pretty much all of the ska albums that came out in '97. Good night, Kelly. Well, last time I heard Metallica was last time they played Lollapalooza. I was on a ghost tour bus that drove down Lakeshore Drive, so we got to see a tiny bit. Kathy, Green Day is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame act that broke as a punk band in 1994 with their hit album Dookie. Then had an Album of the Year nomination a decade later for American Idiot. And I do believe they still got another great album in them. Ambient Rooms for Only Murders. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to find out immediately. I want the intro of that show to be an hour long, and I want to live there. It's on Hulu. Okay. I want... You can just live in Mabel's room. Oh, I'm going to do that immediately. As soon as we're done here. Do I listen to Foxborough Hot Tub? I got the album Foxborough Hot Tub when that first came out.
More to Benny Goodman and his orchestra, and hear Helen Ward sing Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo.
Well, I was 14 when Dookie came out, which is exactly the right age for Dookie. Once I was with a school group in New York, hanging out, you know, as the kids were shopping in Times Square, I was just kind of huddling in front of the theater where Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was playing. It was the best shade I could find. And Trey Cool from Green Day walked in right by me, so that was cool. And Dookie is an album that holds up. Even on their earlier albums, even like songs like 2,000 Light Years Away is like something Lieber and Stroller might have written. It's just that solid a pop song. Christie Road, Going to Pulaski.
And we'll let the title speak for itself. Benny Goodman presenting Madhouse.
Good night, Mom. Who drove me to the Green Day concert in 96? Or was it 95? Might have been 95. It's probably 95. It was right after Insomniac came out. It was a really bare bones tour with the Riverdales opening. The guy I'm going to Springsteen with said he worked sound at a Green Day show in like 92, like way before they broke, but he says he wasn't surprised at all when they broke because they just tore the roof off of the place. Even though there was a level of songwriting and a bit of inventiveness that set them apart from, and a pop sensibility that set them apart from a lot of the other punk acts. The fact that they were willing to move beyond, like, the drinking slushies in a convenience store parking lot and chuckling at dick jokes persona that they cultivated in the early days and do like a rock operas later. It's good to be that ambitious for a band. The stash is my latest thing. I'm actually 3 kids stacked on top of each other. Like Vincent Adultman. I went to stock market today. I did a business.
And here's a short encore portion of Benny Goodman's forthright invitation at the beginning of his program. Let's dance.
Miles will hang out here. Priya's still in that chair. I don't know where Priya went.
We have been presenting the music of Benny Goodman and his orchestra from the Joseph Urban Room of the Congress Hotel on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
All right, Benny's wrapping up again. I guess that's time for me and Miles to wrap up as well and go wash off this mustache and goatee combo. So everybody, thanks a lot for joining me. I'll give a quick plug to the upcoming events once again. We got a week from today. It's Whoa Uptown Tales. That'll be a virtual tour of Uptown with some of my favorite crazy stories from Uptown history. August 7th, that weekend, we are doing Architecture of Mysterious Chicago. And August 14th at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, but come early, we are doing the Graceland Cemetery book release and walking tours. So, all right, it is finally out. I'll be talking about it with Rick Cogan on WGN on Sunday evening. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great time. I'm Adam from Mysterious Chicago, telling everybody to stay safe. Stay strong, and of course, if you can, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta stay spooky.